Okay, I just want to kind of make a little update video of where I'm at with the Samurai project. I'm in the middle of editing some of the other pieces of clips I have. I'll eventually get more out, but at the moment, I just want to show you where I'm at. So I have quite a few of the parts out here. I've cleaned the injectors up. They look pretty good. Miscellaneous bolts, pulley, alternator bracket. This goes around the timing belt and the tools and, you know, water outlet. Just various pieces. This is what I use to help clean it up. And of course, there's more pulleys and stuff up there. And turbo boot. And I got the injection pump, the alternator. It's all out, cleaned up pretty good. Taking a look at the head here. Also did a lot of cleanup, wire brush on this. It has gotten a little bit greasy since I've done it. Just a simple wipe down will do. I went ahead and cleaned all the threads out on these, resealed them, new copper washer. You know, just kind of cleaned everything up as best I could on the head outside. Now I'll flip it over and I'll show you what's all going on the underside. Here's a good look at the underside of the head. As you can see, we're getting close. There's cracks coming down, an enormous amount of pitting all over, cracks, even up in here in the combustion chambers, cracks. You know, you see all this. This is pretty deep. I'm not quite sure how this happened. There must have been some moisture or something sitting in there for long periods of time. I got this engine used. It had about 82,000 miles on it. And like I said before, it ran great. But it just lost an amazing amount of compression and it doesn't want to start. So this would be number 4 cylinder. And when I did the compression test, it came out at 350 pounds. This number 3 came out at 300 pounds. Number 2 came out at 390. And number 1 came out at 300. Now there should be, for a new engine, 495 pounds and a minimum of 412, with no more than, I think, 73 difference between the cylinders. I'm obviously way below those standards. Being below 400 and being 390, 3, and 350, there's more than 73 pounds difference between the cylinders. That's probably a good reason why it doesn't want to start. Okay, taking a look at the turbo here. Again, I wire brushed it, cleaned it up, cleaned out a lot of the soot that built up in the exhaust side. I had to re-tap these flanges, or the flange threads, because a couple of them got kind of messed up. But overall, I mean, the turbo still works good. The looks better cleaned up a little bit. Still spins. Hasn't been oiled in a while, so it is a little bit on the sticky side, but it does still spin pretty good. I know once it gets oiled back in and it gets going, it'll be fine. Okay, now at the Samurai. Let's take a look here what's going on. Cleaning everything up got everywhere, just filthy. I didn't think about all that stuff just slinging around all over the place, but it did. I mean, everything is just as greasy as can be, so it's definitely gonna have to do a good scrubbing in here once I get the engine done. I mean, look at these wires. These were all perfectly clean because I just wired this thing. Anyway, that's easy to clean up. Just a good brush and lots of soapy water, and my pressure washer should do the job. Okay, I've got this over just to protect them from getting rusty. Let's take a look at the engine. As you can see, let's see, this is a good way. As you can see, there's a lot of that same pitting going on in the piston tops everywhere. Take a look at this one. Not only that, if you look inside, I don't know if you can see it, but there's quite a bit of pitting in here and some scarring. I took a wire brush on my drill and just kind of cleaned up in there as best I could, but it is definitely in need of a good hone, or even boring it out another 10 or 20 over, whatever it is they do, and putting some larger pistons and new rings in there. It would probably be worth it, but without rebuilding the head, it's kind of just putting a band-aid on it, you know. Making the bottom end stronger than the head is just going to blow out valve seals out and just destroy the head even more than it already is. And if I put the head back on now with a new head gasket and torque everything down, there's a possibility that I'll still have low compression due to the fact that there's scoring in the cylinders, and the rings may be damaged because of it. You know, there's not going to be the compression. Now there's additives you can put in there like Restore. I've been using that for years. That could help seal up the rings a little bit. Depends on how damaged they are. Also, it was brought to my attention that maybe some of the cause of this is where the piston is actually making contact to the bottom of the head. Now, if it were doing that, it would mean that there's damage at the bottom end, either in the wrist pin, the rod bearings. I don't think the crank main bearings would do that, but definitely the rod bearings or the wrist pin. So they don't have a lot of play in them. You know, they seem pretty solid. Oh, that one moves a little bit. I don't know if you can hear that. That's probably not a good idea. More play than this one. This one doesn't have any play. So I think maybe I'll take the oil pan off, and just kind of check all the rod ends and see if they're loose. A little history on this engine is a couple years ago, it seized up. The oil cooler system broke, and the hose burst, and it blew all the oil out over the freeway. And I was doing about 70 or 75 miles an hour. And when I came off the freeway, the engine seized up, and I had to have it towed home. Now it eventually, when it cooled off, freed itself up, and I was able to turn it over, and I rebuilt the oil system, and it's been running fine ever since. But there always has been that little ticky in the bottom of the engine that tells me that there was rod damage in there, that I had a little slapping going on. When I did that, you know, I've got my external oil cooler down there, or the oil filter comes off the mount, or the comes out of here. This is where it goes up to the turbo. This is the gauge, tells the oil pressure. Then I've got an outside mounted, external mounted oil filter. Those lines come this way to this. Now this controls the oil flow, and once it reaches, it sends the oil back through the system this way until the oil reaches 190 degrees. Then it opens up and allows the oil to go down and around up to the cooler, and then cools the engine. So that gives the engine a chance to warm up a little bit before getting too cold, you know, probably cooling the oil too much. And it really works well. It does its job just fine. As you can see, there's a lot of oil. This thing was making a mess for a while. So I hope you enjoyed that little bit of an update of what's going on. I am thinking about just going ahead and cleaning it up and putting it on. I mean, what have I got to lose? The engine wasn't running to begin with, you know, without a little help with the WD-40, as you saw in episode 1. So I know there should be work done. I should nail the block. I should take a little bit off the head, smooth it out a little bit, make sure that they're not warped. I should replace the rings. I mean, it should just be a complete whole rebuild. But honestly, I don't have the time or the money for that. And I think if I just cross my fingers, put the new head gaskets on, the new hardware, bolt it all back together, and let it rip, see what happens. I think it'll be worthwhile. And what am I out, $100? I mean, the head gasket, the bolts, and the stuff I've spent $100 basically to see if I can make it run. The rebuild is going to be well over $2,000 easy. That new head is about $500. This I'm not sure, but I'm pretty close to probably $1,000 to get this done. And then any other miscellaneous parts that I may have to replace. I think I'm going to give it a shot. Let it try, you know. I can't hurt nothing. It already doesn't run. Might as well. Anyway, that's my video. And more to come. Hope you enjoy it. See you later.